Welcome back to Ride On Academia. Today we are going to be looking at the labor remuneration method. That is the method of labor remuneration, okay? Now, when we talk about labor, okay, labor talks about the workers, all right? The workers in a particular department or the workers in a particular company or an organization, okay? So in this particular topic, we are looking at the method of paying workers, okay? That's just the meaning of labor remuneration, okay? How labor is being paid, okay? How is labor paid, all right? Now we have basically two methods, okay? There are other methods, but basically there are two methods of labor remuneration, okay? So the first method we have is the time based, okay, or the time piece rate, all right? And then the second method that we have is the output basis, okay, or the output piece rate, okay? So I'm going to be making a graph. So this is our labor remuneration chart. Okay, this is a graph to demonstrate or to help us explain the labor remuneration method in details, all right? So this is how laborers or workers in an organization are paid, okay? The method, like I said, the two basic methods that we use in paying workers in an organization. Now we have the time based, okay? The time based or the time piece rate, okay? Like you can see on the board. This method of payment has to do with the time, the amount of time that was spent working, okay, in an organization, the amount of time that was spent working. Like you see, it could either be hourly, that is wages could be calculated per hour that was worked, okay. It could also be daily, that is wages can be calculated per how many days that was worked, and then payment can be made. We can also have weekly basis, and then we have the monthly basis is fixed for the month, okay. It's a fixed amount. That's what we know as salary most of the time. It's a fixed amount, all right, that is paid at the end of the month, all right. And then lastly, we have the overtime, okay. The overtime basis is paid where a laborer or a worker works above the stipulated time, all right. It exceeds the normal time it's supposed to be in an organization. So the overtime basis is mostly higher than the normal hourly base, all right, because the person spent extra time, all right, in the organization than he or she should, all right. Now our major focus today, we want to know how to calculate, okay. Basically we'll be focused on the second method, which is the output piece rate, okay. That is the output based method of labor remuneration. That this method is based on the units of output that was produced, okay. In this case, we are calculating wages based on how many units were produced, all right. So we are looking at that is the direct labor, okay, in this case, because we have to do with the unit that were produced in the organization, all right. Now let us see under the output basis, okay, or the output piece rate, right. We have two further method, all right, which we have the straight piece rate, okay. When we have the straight piece rate, we are saying that the same amount is paid for every unit that was produced, okay. The same amount is paid. Like I said, we're going to be focused on calculating for output piece rate, all right. So for the first illustration under the straight piece rate, all right, we can say that a worker produced 500 unit, all right, of a particular product. Now under the straight piece rate, we are saying the same amount is paid, all right. The same amount is paid no matter how many units you produce. The same amount is paid per unit, all right. So let's see, if we said a worker produced 500 units of a product, okay, and then the payment under the straight piece rate, we are saying that the payment is supposed to be 5 naira per unit, okay. We are paying 5 naira per unit. For example, okay, it's an illustration. We are paying 5 naira per unit produced, right? Output base, okay, or output piece, meaning we are paying per unit produced, okay. Straight piece rate is saying irrespective of how many units were produced, right? Even if the person produced 500 units, right? We are going to be paying the person 500 times 5 naira, all right? That is for straight piece rate, and that will be giving us 2,500 naira, all right. Like it's an assumption, right? So this is for output. Like I said, this is under straight piece rate, right? The same amount is paid. Now the second method, all right, the second method is the differential piece rate, all right. For differential piece rate, we are saying that different amount is paid at different levels of production, all right. Different amount is paid at different levels of production. So it means even if a worker produce 500 units, all right, we are going to be having different levels of production. something like this, under the differential piece rate, you can be having 1 to 100 units, all right, to be receiving 5 naira. We can be having from 101 to 150 units, all right, to be receiving 7 naira. Are we there? And then we can also be having 151 to 200 units, like that. All right, or let me just make this quicker, to 200 units to be receiving 7 naira. So we have from 201 units to 200 or to 300 units, let's still say, to be receiving 10 naira, right? And then we can still have from 301 to 400 units to be receiving 15 naira. And then lastly, from 401 to 500 units to be receiving 20 naira. All right, so in this case, like you see now, we are having different payment rate. Okay, we are having different payment rate at different level of production. That's why it is called a differential piece rate. It's no longer the straight line. Like I said, the straight piece rate is just saying the same amount, no matter the level of production, we are paying the same amount, right? Now, but the differential piece rate is saying that we are paying different amounts. Okay, there are different pay rate, okay, at different levels of production. So in this case, under the differential pay rate, for a worker who produced 500 units, right, we'll have to calculate it. Okay, for the first case where he produced from 1 to 100 units, all right, we are going to be paying 5 naira. Okay, but for the first 100 units that he produced, right, we are going to be having, since it is 5 naira that is the pay for the first 100 units, we are going to be having 5 naira times 100. Okay, for a worker that produced 500 units, we are having 5 naira times 100 units, and that will be giving us 500 naira. Right, now for the second level, remind you he produced 500 units. So for the second level of production, that is from 101 to 200 units, all right, we are saying that for that extra, okay, from 101 to 200 units, we are paying 7 naira per unit. Okay, so at this case, we also have extra 100 units. Hope you know that is from 101 to 200 units, we are having another extra 100 units. Okay, so we are going to be paying 7 times 100. Okay, from 101, if you start counting 101 up to 200, you have 100 units. Okay, so we are paying 7 times 100, that is 700 naira. All right, now for the next level, because you produce 500 units, for the next level we are having 201 up to 300. So in this class interval, we have 201 to 300, and that's another 100 units, right, extra 100 units that was paid. So we'll be calculating 10 times 100, which will be giving us 1000 naira, right? And then we still have from 301 up to 400, right, another 100 units. We'll be calculating 15 times 100, and that will be giving us 1500 naira. So for the last class interval now, we are having from 401 units to the 500 unit. Okay, which is 100. Okay, another 100 units, which is multiplied by 100 to give us 2000 naira. Okay, this is because in this case he produced 500 units, right? That's the reason why we are having the total 100 units here multiplied. So if he had produced 450 units, it means after we have done 100, then we'll be having times 50. Okay, so we're only doing times 100 because he was able to produce these 500 units. All right, so if it was 450, that means at this point we'll be left with only 50. That means we'll be multiplying by 50. All right, because this person produced 500 is the reason why we are multiplying by 100. All right, now so when we have finished multiplying, this is 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, that's 500 total, the unit that he produced. So we will now be calculating the amount paid. So this is the differential piece rate. Okay, different amount is paid, or different wage, a different rate is paid at a different level of output, right? So when we want to know how much do we pay this worker, we begin to add 2000 plus 1500, okay, plus 1000 plus 700, and then plus 500 naira. So we'll be having 5700 naira as payment to this worker. All right, now we're still going to take another example. Okay, we're still comparing the straight line method and then the differential piece rate. All right, so we are having that somebody produced 280 units of a product. Okay, now under the straight piece rate, let's say we are paying a fixed amount. Like I said, straight piece rate has to do with fixed amount, right? So we are paying a fixed amount of 10 naira, okay, per unit that were produced, like under the straight piece rate. All right, and then for the differential, let's say for 1 to 200 units, all right, we're going to be paying 10 naira to that person, all right. And then from 201 to 250, we're going to be paying 15 naira, all right. And then lastly, from 251 up to 300, we're going to be paying 20 naira, right? So this is another illustration, right? So this is for the straight picture, we're only paying 10 naira, a flat rate, okay, of 10. That's why it's called straight. It's just a flat rate, okay, irrespective of how many units were produced. So under the straight pictures, you just calculate 280 multiplied by 10 naira, okay, which is the money per output. That means that person will be going back home with 2,800 naira, okay, as his payment, okay, as his remuneration for the work that was done, okay, output basis. Now let's look at the differential pitch rate, okay. Now we are having a total of 280 units in this case, right? 280 units was produced, and we want to pay the person based on the differential pitch rate, okay, the differential pitch rate. Now for the first 200, for the first 200 units he produced, we are going to be paying 10 times 200 naira times 200 units, okay. 10 times 200 units, and that will be giving us 2,000 naira. Alright, that's for the first 200 units. Now that if we have deducted 200, we are left with 80, right? If we have deducted 200 for the first 200 units, we are left with 80 extra units, right? Now, this is from 201 to 250. That's a total of 50 units, okay? When we count 201 up to 250, we have 50 units, okay? So for the next 50 units that were produced, we are having 15 times 50, okay? So that will be giving us 750 naira, all right. That is for the next 50 units that were produced. Mind you, this person produced 280 units, right? So when we deduct the next 50, we're left with only 30 units, right? 200 plus 50 is 250. The person produced 280, so we're only left with 30 units, okay. Now in this interval is for from 251 to 300 units, okay, from 251 to 300 units. But this person did not reach 300, right? He only reached 280. He stopped at 280. So we're going to count our own from 251 to 280, okay. That is the interval, all right, from 251 to 280, because he did not produce up to 300. So we're going to be calculating 251 to 280, that's 30 units, okay. So we are multiplying by 30, no longer 50. The total interval here is 50 units, but this worker did not produce up to 300 units, right? So we'll only be calculating for what he produced, which is 30 units, right? And then we are paying him 20 naira times 30 units to be giving us 600 naira, all right. So at this point, the total amount we're going to be paying to this worker will be adding 2,000 naira plus 750 naira and then plus 600 naira to be giving us a total amount of 3,350 naira, all right, as compare, okay, to 2,800 naira if it was straight piece rate, all right. So with this, we have come to the end of our video on the labor remuneration method, all right. Don't forget to like this video if it was helpful to you. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't, okay, and turn on the notification button so that when new videos drop, you'll be notified immediately. Also, don't forget to share this video with as many as you can. We'll see you in our next class. Thank you.